ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਖਾਸ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਸਨੀ ਬੈਂਸ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਖਿਦਮਤ ਹਾਂ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਹੈ ਔਰ 27 ਤਰੀਕ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਵੀਰਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੀਰਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਔਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਹੀ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੁਨੇਹੇ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੈਸੇजेस ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸੇ ਸਿਲਸਿਲੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਵਾਈਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਮਾਰਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਤੋਂ MPP ਦੀ ਚੋਣ ਲੜ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਕੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਸਪੈਕਟਸ ਬਾਰੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਨੂੰ ਕੋ-ਹੋਸਟ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਅਜ਼ੀਜ਼ ਦੋਸਤ ਰਿਹਾਨ ਸ਼ਾਹਿਦ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਰੀਅਲਟਰ ਨੇ। ਔਰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਰਿਹਾਨ।
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਸਨੀ।
ਐਂਡ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਾਰਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨਾਲ। ਵੈਲਕਮ ਮਾਰਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ।
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I would quickly want to talk a little bit about you, since I did some research. So ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਹੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿ ਮਾਰਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਪਿਛੋਕੜ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਨਹੀਂ, ਗੋਰੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਕ੍ਰਿਸਚੀਅਨ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟੈਂਟ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ 'ਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਨਮ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਨਵਰਜਨ ਦਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਜ਼ਮ ਨੂੰ ਚੁਣਿਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਹਾਸਿਲ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਣੀ। Mr. Singh.
Gee.
So you were born in a Protestant family in which province?
Nova Scotia, on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia.
Okay. And when did you, or when were you attracted towards Sikhism?
So the process was kind of gradual. I will say that when I was younger, whereas other folks my age, other boys my age were interested in, cars and hunting and that sort of thing. We were a rural community living out in the
So no clubbing?
No.
So that's
there weren't any clubs to go clubbing, to be frank.
Like an Indian pin.
Yeah, exactly, no, it was more about like fishing boats and that sort of thing. But yeah, so what it was is that, and when we have this conversation, we're not passing judgment on one faith being better than the other or anything like that, or one being, right and one being wrong. It's not that kind of a conversation. It's more, what my own thinking was and what aligned with it, as the case may be.
What inspired you?
Yeah, so quite right. You mentioned that I was born a Christian, but then, felt that it wasn't the path for me. And then so I started searching for other things. But remember at that time, it's not easy like today. There was no internet. You had to go to the local library and, dig out books and read and that sort of thing, which is all good. And I didn't really initially find what I was looking for. So then I looked further afield. Again, I didn't. And I actually stopped for about a year and a half. And then I was out in Calgary, of all places, for a political convention. And there were some sick people there. One of them in particular, Devlinder Ajala, who I'm still in contact with today. He chatted with me and about other different issues. So I just started asking him about Sikhi. And he said, your questions are really kind of hard. So if you're still interested when you get back to Nova Scotia, I'll have somebody put something together for you. And so when I got back to Nova Scotia, I contacted them and somebody put together a box of books. And inside the book, it was kind of like two halves. So like about, you could say 50% of the books were on, say, the Sikhism from a historical perspective. So like Khushwant Singh's The History of Sikhs, Part 1 and Part 2, notable in that regard. And then the other half of the books were, you could say, Sikhism from a theological base. So like Dr. Jasbir Kaur's Concept of Man and Sikhism. And then there were a couple books in there also about the geopolitical history of Punjab, which was, of course, important because for those of us who know the Sikh faith, the evolution of the faith went hand in hand with the geopolitical situation over the years. And so I was able to get a very comprehensive view of what it was all about, and the light went on for me. I was like, this is what I've been looking for, all these years, because there was no South Asian people of any type really living around me, and so I felt I found what I was looking for, but still, like there was no sangat, like there was no support, as it were, and so I paused on it again for a little while, and then it came to me that for all of us, when we come to our end of days and we are in the presence of the Almighty Vaheguruji, I didn't want to be there knowing I was fortunate enough to find the path that was right for me, but then not brave enough to follow. So I said, I must do this, and so like that was many years ago. Like I started keeping my case and wearing a bug in October of 1991.
91.
And so like over half of my life now has been, as a Sikh.
You should have come to Malta for inspiration.
Oh, really? Sure.
Or Brampton for that matter.
Yeah, indeed.
So ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਵੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਆਉਣ ਦੀ ਇਨਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੋਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਤਾ ਲੰਬਾ ਚੌੜਾ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਹੈ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਜਾਣਨਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਦੈਟਸ ਆਲਸੋ ਐਨ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿੰਗ ਪਾਰਟ ਮਿਸਟਰ ਸਿੰਘ
Sure.
that you are an environmentalist.
Yeah. I've done environmental work in the past. Some of the
And
work.
you studied engineering and environment. Right?
Yeah. So what it is that my education started off with a chemistry degree, and then
That was in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it was like all four of my university degrees are in Nova Scotia. So we started with chemistry. That went very well, but I wanted a professional degree to go along with it. So we transitioned into chemical engineering because it made use of both, which was very helpful. And right from the very beginning in that area, I did environmental work. And actually, I went to Fort McMurray to work in the oil sands on an environmental project for a period of 8 or 9 months at that time. And what happened was then, like my father actually got diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he was a pharmacist. Yeah, so he was a pharmacist. And what he said was the law in Nova Scotia at that time was that you had to have a pharmacy degree to own majority shares of a pharmacy, because my original plan was to do my PhD and in environmental engineering actually. So my undergraduate would have been chemical, but then it would have been yes, indeed. And so he said, I need you to take your PhD plans and park it, get a pharmacy degree, and secure the family business. And so that's what I did, and that took a number of more years, and then we were into pharmacy. We had a few pharmacies and a number of care facilities. The pharmacies are all sold now, actually, but the care facilities are still there. And before we got into that particular business, we had to develop kind of a project plan around that. And one of the business partners suggested that I do my MBA around that particular project plan, and then we could draw in expertise from academia and other sources for that process. And so that's what we did. And so that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees, as it were, Baji.
Okay. So basically, you are an environmentalist, and you are into the healthcare section.
Yeah, I'm a licensed pharmacist here in the province of Ontario.
Right. So we can talk about some of the provincial issues now.
Certainly.
Since you are running from Brampton East,
Yes.
tell me about your journey in this field of running for an MPP or in politics for that matter. How you're from NDP, so when were you attracted towards NDP? Sorry.
Oh, it's been about 30 years, Baji. It's been a long time that I've been a New Democrat. I mean, I openly state that I didn't start life as a New Democrat. So my father.
A business person, right?
Well, no, but my father was a Liberal and ran for the Liberal Party provincially in the riding of Eastern Shore, Nova Scotia. That was in 1988. And so I was, of course, if your father's, you're not going to go against your father, right, ever, but particularly not as a teenager, so I was involved with that. But then, in the same way that my views on faith evolved over time, so too did my views on politics evolve over time, and I realized that the Liberal Party was not where my political home was, and so I felt that the Democratic Party, best represented the values of Canadians and tried to take care of everybody in society. And so I've been involved in the Democratic Party at all different levels, including sitting on the national executive for a time. Provincially in Nova Scotia, I've done a bunch here, and provincially in Ontario, but then I've also federally sat on the national executive. So you have the elected leader of the party and the MPs at the federal level, but then you also have the president, the vice president, and the national officers, as it were, in the executive. And so I've worked at all different levels, and I'm more than pleased to run electorally. It kind of runs in my family. Something that we didn't mention earlier, Baji, is that my son is actually also running in this election as a New Democrat.
Oh, really?
In the neighboring riding of Brampton Centre.
Oh, congratulations.
So, well, thank you. I mean, the congratulations are all his. He's a sharp young fella, and that sort of thing. And
100%.
again, as much as
What's his name?
Sukamrit Singh.
Sukamrit Singh.
Yeah, so as much as I've been involved in the community, so too has he, So as an example, like in the community base, prior to the show, we were talking about the Cadet Corps program and how very similar it is for our viewers to the NCC and the National Cadet Corps in India and Pakistan. And I've most recently finished my term as commanding officer this past June.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and we worked on that. And so, like, my son was a part of that whole process as well, and has volunteered in the community much in the same way that I have. And so we both have a very much an overriding concern with how things have not gotten better over the past number of years in the city.
So, just for my audience and my
Yes,
viewers,
yeah.
ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਸਪੀਰੀਅੰਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਲੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ 557 ਲੌਨ ਸਕਾਟ ਸੀਜੀ ਐਂਡ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਤਨਜ਼ੀਮ ਹੈ ਇੱਕ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਫੈਡਰਲੀ ਕੰਟਰੋਲਡ ਐਂਡ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਡ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਐਨਸੀਸੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ that brings him closer to the youth as well. So you want to talk about your experience with the...
Yeah, so for many years...
What do you do for the youth for that?
Yeah, so for many years I've taught music to young people in Brampton, and we have our own small group with that, and we've actually had some good success with that. So just this past year, she would have started university in September. One of the very first students that we taught there got a $16,000 scholarship to study music at Western University, so we're very pleased with that piece. And we continue to offer that program with excellent teachers. And then with the Cadet Corps is really quite large. I think when I was the commanding officer, we had about 220 cadets from all across Brampton. I would say, a significant number of those, if not the majority, are from Brampton East area. So through them, you come to learn what the challenges are that people are facing as well, which helps me in this particular political race in terms of becoming the best MPP that I can become.
Rehan, any questions?
Well, being a realtor, the questions right now, the hardship that the people are facing, especially in Brampton. The problem with Brampton is the crime rate has increased.
Exactly.
So the issue is sellers to sell easy, or the new buyers to buy properties in Brampton. People think twice now. So there is a stigma now attached to Brampton. This is not a good place to purchase, it's not a good place to sell. What is NDP's, I know it's provincially, but what is your plan? How to combat this little stigma that's now being attached to Brampton?
So you mentioned crime, we'll get to that. There's a number of other issues that people are deeply concerned about from that perspective also. So, for example, postal code discrimination with auto insurance, like the area that's covered by my riding, literally I think is the most expensive one going, and that's not appropriate at all. And then, as you correctly mentioned, there's the crime piece as well. Also, too, the way development has been done over years in Brampton now has resulted in a city that exists to a certain extent as a bedroom community, meaning people come here to sleep, but there's not enough jobs in the city, fewer jobs now also potentially with the potential shutdown of the auto plant, and then so people have to travel outside. And this has a knock-on effect for everything. So it has a knock-on effect obviously for traffic, but also too, it impacts a lot of the schools. Why does it impact the schools? Because parents can't get back home in time to the school to pick up the children, but yet they also can't get into the after-school programs. And so, quite right. I mean, you mentioned it in terms of, the crime and whatnot, but it's not just one effect. Because if it was just one thing, in terms of real estate agent, you might see a slight drop, but it wouldn't be necessarily significant. But when you start piling on, the fact that the government has not fixed the crime issue, you have the traffic issue, folks can't get back to school in time, and so you have a school funding issue at that point. People want to live in the city with proper services. We don't have the second hospital yet. Yet we have a larger population than Mississauga. If you look at Mississauga, depending on how you count out the healthcare facilities, they have either 3 or 4 hospitals. We shouldn't be going for the second hospital. We should be going for our 3rd or 4th.
Of course.
Given the numbers that we have. And so you're quite right.
And also open up that LRT.
Well, there's all kinds of things that can be looked at, to try to make things work better. So jumping back to the crime one, just because I have heard it a lot on the doors, people are deeply concerned. And tragically, over the last 7 years of the Ford government, nothing's been done. It's not that things have not been suggested to them, because our political party, the NDP, has suggested things to them in Parliament. Unfortunately, they've chosen not to listen. So for the New Democratic Party, there's a two-pronged approach that we're going at with this. One, as much as the Conservatives have underfunded healthcare, and that has caused obvious problems, and they have underfunded education, and that's causing obvious problems, so too have they underfunded the court system. So what it means is that if someone gets caught and charged with a crime, instead of proceeding through the court system and being found either guilty or not guilty, and taking on the results of that decision, what happens is that they exist inside the court system for an extended period of time until such time as the court deems it, not allowed to continue, and the charges get dropped automatically.
Oh, really?
That's exactly how the court system works. It works federally in that way as well. And so what happens is, now if the person's innocent, then they would just be innocent. But if folks are guilty,
they're just walking away.
They're walking away, because like when people come to me, they say they're pissed off about the bail system because someone is able to pay money and then get out and maybe cause more crimes. The bail system has its own issues. This person, when they're dropped and the charges are dropped, it's a clean sheet.
It's a clean sheet.
100%. And so by putting the proper amount of funding in there, it allows the court systems to function properly. So you're dealing with those people who, should not be allowed to move about society in the way that they do currently. So that goes after, crime more generally. And then, excuse me, for car theft, because we know that car theft specifically is a challenging issue, we have another piece. So one of our MPPs in the past raised the point that in not all other provinces, but in some other provinces in Canada and some states in the United States, they have an enhanced VIN tracking system. So your VIN is your vehicle identification number. If you look at the green and gray document that's provided to you for your ownership by the province of Ontario, it's listed on there. Also, too, not that you would ever do this, but if you were to take apart parts of your vehicle, it's printed on various parts of the vehicle as well. So they have an enhanced VIN tracking system, because what's happening now is that vehicles that are getting stolen are being re-VINed or provided with a new VIN, so that they're not turning up as being a stolen vehicle when people are purchasing them. Well, the enhanced VIN tracking system cuts down on that significantly, meaning that now when folks, if that were to be put in place here in the province, if someone were to steal a vehicle, it's much more difficult for them to sell it. Well, if they can't sell it, they're not going to be motivated to steal it. And so you have an umbrella, policy plan to really take care of, as much as we can on all different types of crime generally. And then you have a specific targeted effort to go after car theft directly. Yeah.
I may actually disagree with you on that one, that if people don't have a way to sell, because it's just in a lighter vein.
Sure.
The other day, cops got a person who stole a vehicle, a car, a Mercedes C300 at knife point in January.
Sure.
And he was caught on the 19th of Feb driving that car. So people also steal to drive a car.
Yeah, and potentially too. I mean, the thing is this: we make the best efforts that we can do. Yeah. We know that car theft for sale is a huge issue.
It is.
Because people
selling is the main part, but some people just
and they may do that too. And we hope that those folks get caught. Who do that, but. We both know, we've seen stories in the CBC where people have had their Apple trackers on their vehicle. It's been shipped by train to Montreal, overseas to Belgium, and then to the Middle East, and then, where it goes after that, who knows? But yeah, like, where I'm going with this is that at least, we're coming forward with a plan that we know has worked in other places. Like, we know that court systems function well when they're properly funded. Like, the judges are all smart. The lawyers are all smart. The bailiffs and all the other folks that work inside the justice system to make it function are all highly intelligent people. We just simply need to have enough of them to make it function. And similarly with the VIN tracking system, it's working in other jurisdictions. It's relatively inexpensive to implement. Why wouldn't we do it? Like if it works and it does what it's supposed to do, then that's what we want. Because when we talk about crime, this feeds into, remember how we were talking about how traffic feeds into the education problem and so on?
And court system.
And
Obviously.
Their vehicle stolen obviously feeds into the insurance issue
course it
as
does.
well, you know, and so what we have is because
So
there's
they are all intertwined.
yeah, because there's gross neglect by government on the crime piece, it is now not just
One thing
impacting
is
crime,
leading to another.
it's also negatively impacting the car insurance piece. And I mean, we've talked a lot about the conservatives and that sort of thing, which you know they're responsible for not getting things done, but also the Liberal Party too. They are not without fault either. When it comes to healthcare, Bonnie Crombie is trying to run on healthcare, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But previous to this Ford government, the folks who actually invented hallway healthcare in this province, were the Liberals.
Yeah.
And Brampton should have had a hospital then. Never mind during the Doug Ford years.
Yeah.
And so, and on top of that, you folks, I mean, we're sitting here in Mississauga currently for this. We know who Bonnie Crombie is. We know she was mayor of the city,
Yeah.
and we know that she didn't like Brampton. Like that is
Yeah.
not even an open secret. It's just openly known. But also too, she came back to Brampton maybe about 3 weeks ago for a press conference. It was her with her 5 Liberal MPP candidates behind her, and she was asked what should be a simple question, given that she says she's running on healthcare. She was asked, "Hey, how many people in Brampton are without a family doctor?" She had no idea. What is worse, she turned around and asked each one of her Liberal candidates.
They didn't know that?
And they didn't know either. And one of them's actually a regional councillor.
Oh, no.
And
That's
so
embarrassing.
yeah, so what it is that you have a situation where she says that she dislikes us less in Brampton now because she
That's
needs
when
our
she
votes.
wanted out of the peel.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and let's just jump on that for a second.
Yeah.
Let's say she had succeeded, and she almost did. Folks
Yes.
in Brampton, the property tax would have literally doubled overnight.
Yeah.
Doubled overnight. And it's entirely unfair. Like, we all know the history of Peel Region. When Mississauga was growing up, tax dollars from Brampton went to Mississauga
Yeah.
to build out their infrastructure, and rightfully so. Smart. Now Mississauga's built up, and now things are flowing the other
Vice
way.
versa, yeah.
Which is fair and good, and that's the way it should function, So
Yeah.
like, we're all in this together. But she very much did not see it that way.
Do you think she'll save her own seat?
It's hard for me to predict how politics is going to go. I got to tell you, I think that the Liberal Party generally is in very serious trouble.
They're in hot waters, yeah?
They are, because I mean, so the thing is let's just take a look at this historically. We look back at the last election. In the last election, they were polling provincially at about the same amount that they are doing now. And what happened? They did not get party status, and their leader lost their seat. We are literally in the exact same situation for them. And what this means is, I mean, about maybe 7 days ago, maybe 8 days ago, Bonnie Crombie, the leader of the Liberal Party, was coming out saying, "Oh, New Democrats, you should vote for us. Your vote's a wasted vote." And then even more recently, I think it was yesterday or the day before, she's saying, "Anybody who's voted for any other party
Should vote for us."
take a chance on us. Like it's not a legitimate argument. It's like actually a cry of desperation because they
Desperation
know,
time, yeah.
That's it. Like there's holes in that ship. Water's coming in, and they're up to their neck in it. I mean, for example, like let's say you look at my own riding of Brampton East. 3 out of the last 4 elections, it's been a New Democrat that's represented that area.
Yeah.
It's not an NDP vote that's a wasted vote. It's a Liberal vote that's a wasted vote in our area if you're trying to remove the Conservatives. And that's what we're sharing with people, and people understand and they're responding to that very well.
But you also know that PC swept all the 5 ridings.
In the past, yeah. But that was simply just one election, I mean, we have to look at that more generally.
My question to you now, I want to talk about your own party, NDP.
Sure.
Now, although NDP has had their fair share of provincial governments,
Yes.
except in Ontario.
Well, once in Ontario.
Only once in 157 years of this history
Yes,
of Ontario
yes.
voting.
That's it.
So 157 years and only once, and that was Bob Ray.
Correct.
Who's now Liberal, I think, right?
Yeah, well, he switched to Liberal. His older brother John was always a Liberal.
So are you NDP? Is it still this? It is a truth that NDP and Liberals are fighting for the same vote.
I got to tell you, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I mean,
Why so?
Well, let's do a compare and contrast here. Yeah.
Sure.
Let's focus on Brampton. The hospital problem, and the fact that we didn't have a second hospital, started under Dalton McGuinty
All
and
the
Kathleen
crisis.
Wynne. And it has continued under the Conservative Party. So they are the exact same.
Okay.
You folks live in these communities.
I live in Brampton East.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. You need to vote
I'm
for
gonna vote for
Paji.
you.
Yeah, sure. All right. When you drive around and you look at the schools, did all the portables outside the schools all of a sudden start appearing when Doug Ford took power? No. The portables outside the schools started taking place long back because the Liberals didn't properly fund education. It is worse now, no doubt, because the funding levels have not increased, but the population has increased, so you need more buildings. And again, this is not me as an NDP candidate telling you things. You drive by the schools, you will see that. You know, this doesn't happen in many other places in our province. In many other places in the province, they have the proper funding to either have the number of schools, if you want to build a number of smaller schools, or to build larger schools to get that completed properly. Because, I mean, think about the February that we've experienced here. Like, do you actually really want elementary kids running around outside in snow and ice and everywhere? And, you know, snow clearing hasn't been at its best either, you know, even around schools, because I've been at schools campaigning, you know, and we've seen, like, you know, basically the snow on the sidewalks up to my shoulder. Yeah. So we're seeing problems that, you know, maybe started under the Liberals and are continued under the Conservatives. Let's talk about finance. Let's talk about finance now.
Let's talk about it.
So, the Monday before the election is called, so we're at the end of the month of January, the Finance Accountability Office for the province of Ontario comes out and says Doug Ford's plan to put alcohol in corner stores is going to cost taxpayers $620 million.
Okay.
Crazy. Money literally thrown down a pipe. How much of a hospital can you build for $620 million? It's a matter of priorities. Similarly, in 2022, the private company that owns part of the 407 owed the government of Ontario $1 billion. One of our promises in this election is to take all the tolls off the 407. People say, how are you going to pay for it? You can pay for a lot of tolls with $1 billion. But what did Doug Ford do? He wrote it off. He literally wrote it off. Again, don't take my word for it. You go on the internet, you'll see the records of it. It is there.
I just
No,
Sorry.
Paji, I'm just getting started.
Okay.
We have the $200 million for this useless election. Besides.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, and then,
189
but let's continue on.
Sure.
Ontario Place is being redeveloped. They made a deal with some luxury spa company, I think it's from Europe.
Yeah.
It will cost your family, my family, every single family in Ontario, $400 each in taxpayer dollars. That's going to come to, depending on how long you calculate it over time, $2 billion. And they say that they're the fiscally responsible ones.
What about $200 each to vote?
Yeah. Well, and they're buying you with your own tax dollars at that point. But hear me, do you think they're the ones who started that? No way. Dalton McGuinty, if I remember correctly, when he canceled the natural gas plant, I think it was right here in Mississauga, it was supposed to come. They had to pay a penalty to private business of $1 billion for nothing. So you have a Liberal and you have a Conservative Party that's effectively the same. They blow all kinds of money on things that don't impact the people's lives in the province of Ontario, and they refuse collectively to invest in their own province. You talked about the NDP taking government in other provinces. Let's talk about what that means. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
British Columbia, an NDP government. Public auto insurance. Manitoba, NDP government. Public auto insurance. Saskatchewan, yes, it's currently, they're the Sask party, but they're a Conservative party. But they had NDP governments many times in the past. That's where the NDP started provincially.
Yes.
Yeah, as the CCF. Public auto insurance. Has any Liberal party anywhere in this country done public auto insurance? No. Has any Conservative party anywhere in this country done public auto insurance? No. So you come to me and you say NDP and Liberals are fighting over the same votes. I'm like, maybe not, Paji. Maybe your Liberal and your Conservative parties are the exact same damn parties with just different people at the heads of them. And I will give you even more evidence of this. Bonnie Crombie, when she became leader of the Liberal Party, said she was taking the Liberal Party further to the right. Why is that? She's just taking it back to its natural place, because the Conservatives and the Liberal parties are effectively, from a policy perspective, the exact same. And so we are the only real alternative who's going to invest in the lives of Ontarians so that they can, have a better quality of life. It's important.
Well, Martin Singh,
Gee,
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And I cannot disclose if I'm going to vote for you or not because that will not be fair.
Sure.
But I am in your riding.
Gee.
So anything you want to talk to our viewers about, and probably this is the last message you will be having
Yeah, sure.
before the 27th.
That's it. So, first of all, I'd like to thank all of the residents of Brampton East. We've had an enormous team going door to door, and every day, despite all the crazy weather that we've had this past February, you have been very gracious in opening your door despite the bad weather and sharing with us the concerns that you have. It's been very fortunate and helpful process for all involved. In fact, we've been able to already help some people find solutions to the challenges that they've had navigating different levels of government and also making their lives better as a result. We continue to encourage people to share their concerns with us so that not 30 days or 100 days after I get elected, but on day one, February 28th, I can be a fighter for you in Brampton East and I can be your advocate. If you have questions for us, please feel free to come by our office. We're located at 4515 Ebenezer Road. We're in Suite 208. And in addition, on election day, if you need any help voting, make sure you bring your voter's card. And even if you didn't get a voter's card, bring your driver's license so that you're able to vote. You're welcome to call me personally on my cell, 416-937-4166. The number again, 416-937-4166.
ਸੋ ਦਰਸ਼ਕੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ। ਸਮੇਂ ਦੀ ਘਾਟ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਮਾਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਸੀਮਤ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ। ਔਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਮੁਤਫਿਕ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ। ਫਾਈਨੈਂਸ਼ਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਥਰੂ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ, ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ, ਹੈਲਥ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ, ਹਾਲਵੇ 'ਚ ਬੈਠਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਹਸਪਤਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਹਾਲਵੇਜ਼ 'ਚ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਟਸ, ਉਹ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ। ਸੋ ਅਮੰਗਸ ਆਲ ਦਿਸ ਮੈਂ ਅੰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗਾ ਕਿ ਮੇਨ ਪਾਰਟੀਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੇ NDP ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨੇਤਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਮੈਰਿਟ ਸਟਾਈਲਸ, ਐਂਡ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਬੋਨੀ ਕਰੋਮਬੀ ਲਿਬਰਲਸ ਵੱਲੋਂ, ਐਂਡ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਮਾਈਕ ਸ਼ਰਾਈਨਰ, ਐਂਡ ਡਗ ਫੋਰਡ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ PC ਪਾਰਟੀ ਵੱਲੋਂ। ਬਹੁਤਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਮ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਟੌਪ 'ਤੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਕੌਣ ਬਣੇਗਾ, ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਲ ਹਲਕੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਸੁਚੇਤ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੌਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਮਾਰਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਵੋਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪਾਓ, ਜੇ ਦਿਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਾਉਣ ਨੂੰ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿਰ ਪੈ ਹੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਵੋਟਿੰਗ ਰੇਸ਼ੋ ਉੱਪਰ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸੋਚੋਗੇ ਘਰੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬਜਾਏ ਵੋਟ ਪਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ, ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਰੇਸ਼ੋ 40-45% 'ਤੇ ਹੋਏਗੀ, ਪਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਚੁਣੀ ਜਾਣੀ ਹੈ, ਬੰਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਚੁਣੇ ਜਾਣੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਯੂ ਵੋਟ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ। ਅੱਲਾ ਹਾਫਿਜ਼।